And essentially I am working with things that are not seen, that are intangible, like energies that I can't say, oh, I'm doing Instagram or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I had to always convince people that I'm talking to spirit. I don't just hear voices.
I'm just picturing Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost right now. Like when you do a reading.
I pictured a ghost.
When you do a reading, do you go, can't talk to anyone now? Nope, my energy's gone. See ya, go, walk out of the room. Does that happen? Welcome to the Wild Roads. I'm Shona Lee.
And I'm Paula Ivy. Join us for conversations about how we don't do stuff normal.
How we choose the wild roads of life. We want to show you all that's fun and possible, building businesses, making money,
navigating relationships and parenting, things we nerd out about,
and running at our wildest dreams.
I've got a bit of hair envy. Look at your mane. It's like the mufasa is out and mine is so flat and tied back and like non-existent. Look at that mufasa. It's out.
So beautiful.
It is a bit wild.
I love it.
Hey everyone, we're here. Kasia Burke is our guest today. We are so excited to talk to her. But before we do, we have our question that we begin with. Sort of sets the tone for the session.
We ask a question. We call it awkward questions.
Yes, they're very awkward.
To get to know one another better. So the question, which is very much related to why we've asked you to come on to talk to us today, which we'll get to in a second. But the question that I would love to ask everybody here is, who or what would you love to be reincarnated as in your next life?
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Is that me starting?
You start. Go for it.
See, for me, it's a toss between a dolphin or Buddha.
Oh, I like that answer.
I feel like I could use the peace, the quiet, and I just have a nice, peaceful life, but and mostly, within me, but also with the dolphin, because they're so playful and so carefree and just
so cute.
So cute. Yes. Yes.
Everyone loves a dolphin.
What about you, Shona?
Oh my gosh. So I think about this a little bit too much, I think. I don't want to be a snake. I find them fascinating, but no. I think from a little girl, I used to have these dreams that I was a bird and I was flying over my classmates and I could see my classmates below me. And I think all through my life at different stages, I think it's a bird. I think I'd love to be a bird. Just that freedom and the freedom to fly, but, looking down on people, spying. No. I'd have to choose the type of bird too, because I don't want to be game to be eaten. It'd have to be something like a bluebird or something like that. What about you, Paula the Ivy?
It's a very interesting question. I do feel like a dolphin would be amazing. I would love, I often feel like I am a dolphin sometimes when I'm in the water, and being a dolphin would be freaking wicked. You're kind of like the kid of the sea, and sharks they're not going to mess with you, and you're like the one that just playfully, jumps around and plays with everybody. Everybody feels cool around a dolphin.
Everyone loves the dolphin.
Everyone loves the dolphins. But if I was to go a person, I would love to be a person who discovered something that nobody else has discovered before.
Ooh, like
something
Tesla.
Really cool too.
Yeah, Tesla. Yeah.
Tesla started everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I obviously photography nerd, but I often think about how cool would it have been to be the person who took the first photograph and been like, guys, this is a thing. That's it was a photo of the outside of a view of a window, and they made this impression. I was like, look, it's like the window, but it's here. That would have been the coolest thing to be able to do.
Mind blowing.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Love
it.
it, love it, love it. All right, that was cool. I love those sorts of questions because it makes you think deeply. It's beautiful. So our beautiful guest here today, Kasia Burke. Oh my goodness, do you know what? I don't even know how I stumbled upon you, but I know when I did. Whew, I was just like, who is this amazing woman? Who is this lighthouse, this beacon, this? I was just so drawn to you and so magnetized to you. And I was just like, I didn't even know what you did at the time. I was just like, wow, this woman just has this presence and I need to know. I need to know her. I need to work with her. I need to.
Oh, no. I'm going to be crying here on your
And then Carly Marie, the author of Soul Modes, who we all know very well, was, she mentioned you and she told me what you were doing. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's the extra reason why I was magnetized to you and just was like, okay, I do need to work to you. So please tell our audience, what do you do, Kasia? How do you serve people and your amazing gift?
Wow. Where do I go from here? What an introduction. Oh my gosh. It's only downhill from now.
No way. No way.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. My gosh, it's so amazing. And you know what really blows my mind? Because I remember you two were like one of the first ones who took a chance on my little tiny readings. And they have grown so much now that I feel like, oh my Lord, they're so big now and there's so much more coming through. But just to give everyone who doesn't know me, how do I describe them? I give you your soul's blueprint, as in the lessons that your soul is here to learn, where you're originally from, your soul, where it's from, like your cosmic rays, like this really in-depth blueprint. I think it's probably the best way I can describe it. And that gives you this really deep understanding of who you are, why you're here, why things have happened to you, why you might be stuck in certain patterns. It just explains, it puts everything into perspective. And my favorite bit is the past lives, because now I can do them in a session, which blows my mind, because it's like I'm talking and they come through and I feel them so powerfully. So I try to describe them as much detail as I can, so that my sitter can experience it as well, like these past lives. And in many ways, past lives sort of help you then to understand why you might be doing certain things in this life, where you've got some inexplainable, irrational fears, maybe, or blocks, and then we shift it all, we move it. So that's
I love it. It's so fascinating, and the depth that you go to in your sessions. Like Paula and I have both had sessions, right? And my first session, I was a bit blown away. I actually got a bit emotional in one of them. I was a gypsy in a past life that were leading a group of women, and there was no men. We left the men behind and we're leading. And we just didn't know what we're doing. We had a purpose to go somewhere, but we're in a cart, and a horse and cart, and some trouble came, and I was basically being chased, and things that happened. Like, I won't go into too much detail, but basically, things went wrong there. I was like, wow, that makes so much sense to me. That makes so much sense. Why I feel the way I do, why I stayed in this life, in that for as long as I did, not under sufferance, but caged, and why I felt like I was a gypsy, why I felt like I need to move on. I needed to move houses, because I've moved in so many houses. I'm just like, okay, I'm sick of it now. I'm off. I need a new chapter. That's how I am. Probably less now that I'm in a different relationship. I'm in a different, period of my life. But it was all making sense to me. And there was other lives that we went through as well. And then you had a reading with my brother, who I'm very close to. And he's, we're just, I don't know, like soul. I don't know, there's something there. And then it wasn't until you didn't even know this at the time, Kasia, and you said to me, your brother and you have been in multiple lives together. You've always been your constant together. And that was just like, yeah, I know. I can tell that now. That's the reason why we're like twins. We're 2 years apart, but we're like twins. If he's feeling something across the other side of Australia, I can feel it. I know he is. That sort of thing. So it's so damn interesting. I love it. And how you get to that point is just, wow, blows my mind.
I love your brother's reading actually, because I think it was during his where I first had my guides, my spirit team go like, you need to learn about the French Revolution, the war, the Women's March. It's like I had these images and I'm like, I have no idea what they're showing me. And lo and behold, the French Revolution came up for me first. But for me, it was like this learning curve that they show you images and and all of a sudden it was popping up like randomly on Google, this French Revolution. And I'm like, oh, let me read up on this, because it's like they show you something, and in order to understand it, and in order to grasp what they're showing you, you have to feed your human senses the cues so that they can store it in your database, right? And if you're not familiar with French Revolution, I wouldn't be able to tell this past life, because I would be like, well, there's something there, they're fighting, I don't know where it is, right? And it was particularly interesting. It was such a learning curve. But I remember your gypsy, oh my gosh, it's so funny, because that was probably first time outside of like my readings that I did for my family where I felt everything so much. And I remember like you running through this luscious forest, and then, oh my God, it was like feeling it and seeing it, and it's just amazing. Amazing.
You were emotional when you were sending me those messages, and I was just like, when you're feeling it that powerfully, there's something in that,
Yeah, I was hoping that because back then I think I was recording and sending them, so which I always kind of worried, because you kind of leave someone with this powerful information that is very emotional and traumatic in many ways. I send it off and then I just think, oh, I hope it lands well, because it's so much to take in.
Yeah, it is. It's so much in there, but it's so powerful. So tell me, Paula, were you a disco diva in your past life?
I was not a disco diva in a past life that I know of. There were, I think in our reading, you said I'd had 389 past lives. So I could have been a disco diva in one of them. That's quite possible. But I do remember the ones that you showed to me in our reading. It's very interesting, because one of the past lives, you obviously do a reading and you tell us what, our soul, our spirit is wanting you to tell us, up to like you tell us that you're being shown the part of that past life that we need to understand in this point in time. And it was so interesting, because we had our past life reading early 2020. It was just after I'd gotten back from traveling around Australia with my family. And my favorite one of the past lives that had done in my reading was the one, it felt like I was like an Amazonian warrior. And I was this woman who was living in the jungle, and I had been captured by this group of men who were on an expedition, and I was basically, a maid for them. And then I was like, nah. And then I escaped. And there was a whole because they could see, well, they thought I was valuable because they could see I could fight, and I knew how to use a knife, and I was brave like the guys. And so they'd take me on expeditions with them, and I saved their lives a few times. And you said there was a snake that I had decapitated or something to save them, and all of these things. And it was so interesting, because that sort of ended there with your reading. And earlier this year in 2021, I've done a few sessions with Annette Shepherd. She does what's called forensic healing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And she sort of works with, certain ages, and when like a negative life pattern or a life pattern's occurred, that's now repeating. And one of the sessions I had with her, she's like, oh, it's from a past life. And I was like, oh, cool. So we went through and we did this visualization together. And at the end of it, I was bawling my eyes out, and I was just like, I couldn't speak, because I was like, it was the continuation of that past
Oh,
life.
wow.
And it just
Good
blew my
goosebumps.
mind how, you know, you can be a skeptic of this kind of stuff. But I've had so many readings, like I've had, you know, past life readings with you. I've had forensic healing sessions with Annette. I've done life purpose sessions with Maria. I've done, you know, HD readings with Michelle, like all these people that are doing these readings, and they all overlap and tell me the same thing, but in different ways. And it's so beautiful because you're like, oh, yeah. What happened was that when I was escaping, and there was a man that had joined later on, and that you said was my husband who in this lifetime. And it was so interesting because we were escaping and we were still living in the jungle, but then we were surrounded by people and we were in this big fight. And it was kind of like I was the last man standing. And then I turned and looked at my husband and he was dying. And I was like, oh, like I did that to him. And it was like, I'm getting emotional, but it was like, we had just come back from traveling around Australia. And like, that was my idea to do that. It felt like the pattern had come up again in this lifetime, that I had put us in a position where we're out in the jungle. We're like out fending for ourselves. We're doing life a completely unnormal way. We're not doing what we, you know, should be doing. And for me, there was a lot of, and I didn't actually realize what it was until I had this session with her and I was able to release it. And I knew exactly what it was, is because I was holding on to the guilt of it was my fault. And that was actually a big thing of when we traveled, was like, if anything happens to any of us, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be on me because this was my idea. They're following me and doing my idea. So that was a whole process of letting that go and really, you know, believing and trusting and knowing that people make their own decisions. If my husband didn't want to come on this, he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like he would have said, no, we're not doing that. And we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But that was just, it was so beautiful because I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. And it was the next part of that story. And I was like, wow, it's so amazing to see. And I mean, there's other, you know, readings that you've done for me that I can see, you know, patterns that are very similar in so many.
Do you know what I love about this actually, Paula? Because this describes in perfect way how I try to explain to my clients how this whole knowing this past lives can serve you, because a soul kind of picks up where it left off, right? Which and it repeats certain patterns to learn life lessons. So if you had this unhealed karma, which is this energy that's trapped and kind of gets you to
that's what she said it was. It was a karmic soul contract that we were.
Yeah. And if you have it repeating, right? So you're not moving forward because let's say you're still stuck feeling guilty. It's almost like you choose experiences in this lifetime, very similar to what you had in previous, right? To go through and learn it. But this time, you know, your husband was placed in a position where he's your husband. Let's say he's not just, let's say, I don't know, bystander friend. So you choose certain you know, you choose the souls to be in. And I told you, I think that you and your husband, like these twin flames who always want to reincarnate together and assist each other and help each other. And this is just like your way in this lifetime of kind of releasing that, because everything that you have learned on this journey of putting your family, let's say, making this decision, putting your family into this journey, right? Traveling and going around Australia and worrying and thinking, what if something happens? But everything that you've learned in the process as well, right? Like being there and doing this and how much you can stretch and how close probably your family is. And then finding Annette, it's the way I see, the way I was shown is your soul would have chosen her soul to pop up in that place, and that's why you felt drawn to it, right? That's why we're drawn to certain people, because they have that, it's almost like, I don't want to say magic pill, but they have that key to that, to unlock this next thing, right? And sometimes it's so caught up in our head and our ego, we don't hear these little whispers, and we kind of, you know, think, oh, it has to be this big thing, or it has to be this, or, you know, we just ignore it, right, and bypass it. So I really loved it because it really explains, your story is a good example, I guess, how our souls choose similar experiences in the next lifetimes till they release that karmic pattern.
Isn't that is so interesting? And that's probably just cemented now with my gypsy story, that I was taking the women away from the men that were trying to control us and cage us, and always wanting to move forward. And now, like in this, I've obviously healed that, because in this life, with the love that I have with Simon, my faux husband, is such a respectful, beautiful union for us that I don't want to go anywhere anymore.
Yeah, like, you healed it, right? But you are a freedom seeker. You're still a freedom seeker, right?
Yes.
You just find different ways of now channeling. But when you even said that you were moving around, Shana, it was like to find your you know, your utopia, your little place. And then and it's funny because as you two were talking, I was getting that, Shana. So it's interesting because your brother and you are soulmates, but your now, as we call for husband Simon, is soulmates as well. And Hollywood has kind of led us to believe that there has to be one soulmate, right? There has to be that one person, but it's actually just souls from the same soul group who constantly want to reincarnate together, and they kind of connect together. And see, you are, I don't know if we spoke about this in your reading. So your soul originated in Mintaka. So you're a star seeder. And did we talk about this?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember I had this conversation. I'm like, I can't remember if it was in the reading or not. And it's interesting because when Paula was talking, it's like I should say, they were saying.
I love it.
My friends were talking. It feels so much like I'm talking to someone. You know, like when you're talking to one child and then other child is talking to you at the same time, and you're trying to like listen, but you're trying to focus on your conversation. So it feels like that for me sometimes.
Wow.
I can share it here because, you know, you don't want to share this kind of stuff everywhere because people with white jackets might come after you. But
like voices. Okay.
So channeling. Let's call it channeling. But for you, Paula, I was getting that you started on Mintaka as well, which is why you and Shauna are close. But you also spent lifetimes. I feel like there's a bit of Pleiades, but you started, your first incarnation on Earth was in Atlantis. And I think it's from Mintaka and Atlantis that you have this love for the ocean and sandy beaches and stuff. So if you look up Mintaka doesn't exist anymore, but the star, the planet, was just crystal clear waters, you know, and a lot of souls that are now from Mintaka, they love being by the water, in the water, live near the water. They tend to move around a lot because it's like they can't find their forever home. But when they do, it becomes their sanctuary, and they want to build their own little utopian place, right? Away from like what is being dictated to us maybe. And it's mostly because they still miss that peaceful home that was filled with these crystal clear waters and everything was clear love, and they miss it. And this world is very dense and very rough, and so they're trying to build their own little community, whether it's with family, whether it's with other people, and just live a life that's not necessarily, how do I say it,
conventional.
Mainstream.
Yeah. This is what I mean. Like, you say that and it feels so true.
Yeah.
And it's like that. Do you know what? When we traveled Australia, I think that was a big, like, because I saw that vision of us doing it so clear that I was like, there's no way we're not doing this. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't even know how the hell it's going to happen. And, it did. And I can't even really tell you all the specifics because it just started happening. But the thing was, when we traveled, we stuck to the coastline of Australia. And when we would have to go inland, especially through like Queensland to get up to Darwin and up to the Northern Territory, you kind of have to go inland. It's kind of like when there's no water around, I feel really lost. I have this like moment of like, okay, I need to get to the water. And whenever we came across some amazing places, and we swam in like the clearest water I've ever seen in my life. And it was like this moment of just like, as soon as I would walk into the water or be in the water, it was kind of like my whole nervous system would just relax. And I'm like, this is what it gets to be. Like, this is it. It was like this homecoming every time I would come across this body of water that was crystal clear goodness. And I was like, this just feels so like home for me. And it was so like, now hearing you say that, I'm like, that is why. At the time I thought it was so strange. I'm like, yeah, but we're traveling. Like, I don't have a home really. But it just, I never felt more at home than traveling around and on the search for these amazing, like I was pretty much on the search for the most beautiful beach that I could find. That was what was driving me. So that's so interesting. Yeah.
They don't say home is where the heart is for nothing, hey?
That's so true. That's so true.
But that's
especially for you two.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, for us, for sure.
Oh, I should say for me too, because I'm in Takin too. But
are you? Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And this is the funny thing. At first, I was getting just that one soul group, right? And then the more readings I was doing, it's like they were lifting the curtain, and it was like, oh, there's a whole lineage. It's like you might be born in one country, move to another, and then maybe as an adult you move somewhere else again, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this whole lineage, and then putting all these pieces together, I'm like, oh, this is why this is happening. And it's like these layers that they're uncovering, which is fascinating.
It's so cool. Yeah. So cool. So tell us, Kasia, how and when did this sort of happen for you? Like that you would do this full time and this was your calling, this is your life work. How did this all come about?
Sorry, I'm distracted. I look like a raccoon. I know no one on your podcast can hear it. With orange eyes. I'm looking at myself, I'm like, what is this? I look like I've got a mask or something on. I did nothing. I don't know what is happening with this light. Sorry.
It's the lighting, yeah.
I hope so.
Stunning.
But if Paula says so, I take it. Oh my God. How it started, yes. So I started meditating in 2019, I think. Yes, we were in Vietnam, and we met this beautiful lady, and she said that she gets up every morning at 4:00 and she meditates for an hour, and she's vegan, and she had this vegan restaurant, and her and my husband were talking because he was trying to get me to meditate and never happened. And she said, just get up a little bit earlier and just meditate for 5 minutes. And I started, and then like it was increasing and increasing. And then as I was going into these deeper meditations, I think I started seeing first past lives for my husband, which made so much sense to him. And like, for my kids. And it was like this really intense visions, and everything was making sense. And it was just like, you feel it and you go like, oh my God, yeah, this is why this is happening. And this is why this is happening. And everything made sense. I wasn't sure if I'm going to tell this to anyone because I didn't know if that, like what, how do you tell, so I just thought, but I told Carly Marie, and who was then my business coach, I guess. I said, I don't know, I've got this thing, we're talking about it. And then I did a reading for her. I wouldn't even call it a reading. I just told her like, okay, I'll just sit and see what happens. And then I told her things, and things made sense to her as well. And then I think it started from her because she, in our mastermind, in our little group, told everyone about it. And it was funny because even that video session, I was like, I don't know if I can do this because people will think I'm crazy. And it was really scary because when I was younger, my mom did tarot, my grandma did tarot and pendulum. They could see auras. We had cards. I had cards. It was the normal thing, except there was always this stigma around it. Like, you can't take it outside. Don't take it to friends' houses. Don't take it to school. It was like this weird thing. And now thinking back, I've never actually seen my mom or my grandma do it for clients. They were just doing it for themselves or friends.
Yeah.
So I had this around me, and I was doing cards, and at some point when I was like 18, I always thought I'm making things up, but it was just a bit of fun. But then things were happening. Like, I had no filter. So a proper professional tarot reader has a filter, and she knows what to say and what not to say. And I was just blurting out whatever was coming in. And so when these bad things were happening, I felt like I jinxed these girls. So I shut it down and I stopped doing cards. So when then, thanks to Carly, we kind of opened this, and this was something. I think my biggest block and fear was that for 20 years, the friends that I had, they didn't really know that I was ever doing tarot, and all of a sudden she was doing this, and it was like I
Ah,
had a lot of my family from overseas are Catholic, so like I can't say anything.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that fear, and I think that was really what was holding me back. And I wanted to do it like just by referral, just don't tell anyone. I'm just going to do it underground, and I'm still going to keep doing my lash coaching and stuff. But it was impossible, because it was like pulling me in, and there were more readings coming and more was coming out. And I noticed that in order to kind of grow and see more, I had to start moving some blocks and healing those fears, because I was stopping messages from coming in. I just go like, you know what, I'm just going to come out of the spiritual closet, just say it. And, if it polarizes people, so be it. But it's just, and I'm sure you too had this feeling as well, like when you're here to do this particular thing, and it like, you cannot not do it.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like, well, too bad, I'm standing here, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And if people don't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. So so it started kind of like with that, and a lot of healing.
Yeah. And so now that you've embraced it, you're going gung ho. Like, how does it feel now? Like, there's no regrets, right?
Oh, Sean, it's been amazing. But even for my own personal growth, because I was the kind of person that thought, well, I'm normal. I don't have any wounds. I don't have any, things that need healing, right?
Yeah.
And nothing has cracked me open as much as doing this, because you have to, like, in order to trust that what is coming through you can pass on without judgment, without filtering it, you have to trust yourself. So if you don't trust yourself, or if you have fears of rejection, you're going to block it, right? So I had to do a lot of work around this. I worked with the shaman, I had spiritual mentors. Like for a year, I was just like, I just want to focus on that. But as a result, I was growing. And even before, I shouldn't say that, because, in our group, a lot of the ladies that were coming in first, they were all super lovely and nice, and we all knew each other kind of. So everyone was very lovely, giving me great feedback. But I felt like, it almost felt like, when you do readings for friends and, they're nice and they tell you, yeah, I love it, right? And then you do the first one that's like off the street. And I had to really do a lot of work around that to know in my core belief that what I'm doing, and essentially I am working with things that are not seen, that are intangible, like energies that I can't say, oh, I'm doing Instagram or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I had to almost convince people that I'm talking to spirit. I don't just hear voices. In order to do that, and I had to believe in it before, like, the first off the street review came in. Like, I didn't want to be codependent on, like, oh, did they like the reading? Did they not like the reading? So I had to do a lot of work around this. But it's been so amazing for me, because I feel so solid in it now. Even if, let's say, there was a troll, and I didn't really have anyone that was nasty or mean about it. I think people either ignored it, like, man, she's onto something again, it'll pass, or they were embracing it. And I always think that the people that stick with you and support you in this growth period, as opposed to being polarized or threatened or triggered, as you go up, you pull them up with you, and they grow, right? And things start to happen for them. So I think that's been really nice to know the people that are coming with me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I was very curious, because doing this, working, cracking yourself open and looking at the, the stuff that you had around doing this work, do you see your own past lives, and do you get these visions and these downloads for yourself as well? So, what you're bringing into this lifetime and
That's
what you're here to do.
Question.
Yeah.
It's like that proverbial, what is it, a shoemaker that walks around barefoot because he makes shoes for everyone else.
Yeah, the plumber
like
never has, or the mechanic never has a running car, and the plumber never has clear pipes.
So that's kind of like me, except for that one big first session where it was like 4 hours of stuff coming in, and I saw myself and why this happened, why I had to, meet my husband and this and this. And like, aside from that, I never actually had the time to go back, because I had readings constantly, where readings coming and then started growing. And it was just like working on strengthening my abilities, or I was working on reading. So I never actually had the time, aside from occasionally something dropping in. But as I started strengthening my abilities and healing, I noticed that things started happening for me faster. Like, I don't really have to go into deep meditations now to receive it. Like, I could, I can tune in and see. But I did recently have a beautiful friend of mine do an Akashic record reading for me. And I was just curious, even like, maybe it's, she will just confirm a few things that I knew. And in a sense, she did. But she also told me things that I was like, oh, wow. So this is what it feels like for my clients, because it was like mind-blowing stuff. And she used this term that I often use, it's like, you see this much, you see the tip of the iceberg, but there's all this other stuff underneath, and we're just bringing a little bit more up.
Yeah.
And I always say that to my clients. I'm like, you think like you're this, and this is already pretty good, but there's so much more underneath.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because how much would your brain literally explode if you brought all of that up to the surface at one time?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like what we want. We were like, just show me what all the stuff is. But
yeah,
like,
we did.
you would literally implode, like, if all of that stuff came up at one time.
Yeah, well,
the
the
good,
way
the bad,
I
and
sort
the
of,
ugly, like all of it.
well, yeah, and it's like, you don't even need, you don't need to know all this, but you don't need to use all this, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like you want to know that this is here because it empowers you, that you are not just this human, this sack of skin and bones and meat just thrown into this life, and you just follow along like on a conveyor belt. You want to know that there's more, and tapping into past lives. For example, like for you, Paula, you tapped in and it allowed you to release something, right? Like that karmic energy. I say to my clients, for example, knowing about your cosmic races, you can tap into that energy, and you can download, what you used to do over there. So especially my clients who are healers, right? And to tap into their soul family and allow them to show them, what you used to do when you were an Arcturian or Pleiadian, and then you can download it, and all of a sudden you know how to do things, or things that felt difficult no longer feel difficult, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let's say if you picked up that camera that first time, and maybe like for someone like me, I would need tutorials, I would need workshops to get it, but maybe you picked it up and you just kind of looked at it, maybe watched one video and you got it, and it's amazing. And it's like, wow, where's this coming from?
Yeah, the moment I picked up a camera, it felt like I'd found a part of my hand that was missing.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like I was like, this is supposed to be in my hand. Like,
yes,
it was so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? Like you just have this, like I know with Shauna, for example, she has this vision, and like she can see things clearly, like you're now like moving out into the deeper waters, but even like the styling, right? Like I need photos of rooms that are styled, and then I can go like, oh, I want this or this or this, but you can envision an empty room and you know where things need to go. It's like to have this ability to do that. It's a matter of like tapping into those energies, right? Into your, so for example, let's say in our reading, I would have told you that you were a structural master, what is it called? Master of structure and design over there in between lifetimes, right? So you can tap into that energy because they're creators, they are visionaries, and you can bring that down to you. So it helps you to kind of activate these, for lack of better word, codes within you, and then all of a sudden you get it, right? Maybe certain conversations with people triggered you, maybe triggered you took things personally, all of a sudden you don't, right?
Yeah.
So it's tapping into these energies, releasing anything that doesn't serve you, and then just activating the things that you want to use, programming yourself.
It's just brilliant because it's like guidance. Some things need to be woken up within us, and some things need to be healed. And this what you do, Kasia, is just remarkable in being able to do that. Like we can navigate our lives on our own for sure, but when we get to experience having someone to guide us and to to enlighten us to something that we may not be seeing within ourselves. That, like, it's so enriching. It's so powerful. And what a life that I have now, being able to have experienced working with many women, but you in particular just showing me why. Like, I feel content now, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm a why searcher. Like, I love to know the whys. I need to know things. I need to know, why did I act this way? Why did this, happen to me or whatever? But now I just feel content. I feel like it's not control, but there's a thing there that's sitting inside of me that's just like relaxed, so much more relaxed now.
Yes, I feel the same way, because I always thought there was something wrong with me because I felt like I couldn't sit still energetically.
Yeah.
Like, I always envied the kids that would, like, their parents used to move house quite a lot, because I grew up in my childhood house. And then when I was 13, we moved for the very first time. And when that happened, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I felt like
it's happening.
Yeah, I know, because that whole child, and I was one of those annoying kids that, like, every other week I was shifting the furniture around in my room, and my mum would be like, Paula, stop shifting the furniture. I'm like, I can't, like, I needed that, something to change. And it makes so much sense that that's actually me accepting that and like, even since my husband and I have been together, which is 16 years now, we've lived in, oh my goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 places in 16 years. Oh, 8, including our caravan, which was all over Australia. So, like, we've moved a lot. And it's so funny, every time we've gone to buy a property in the intention of us settling down, they've never gone through. We've always been like, wow, we've got to keep renting because, like, we haven't found the house yet. And it's just, it makes so much sense. And I'm like, oh, my soul doesn't want to settle down. Because when I actually really think about it, I'm like, yeah, having a home would be nice, like one that we've bought and that we own and we don't have to rent off somebody else, but not to live in it forever and ever. Amen. Like, to have it, yeah, I'd like to own several houses all over Australia, all over the world, so I can go and be in that place and then move to the next place. And like, it's nice to know that that place is there when I'm ready to go there.
Now you don't feel like you're victim to circumstance anymore.
No, I don't feel like I'm fluky or flaky or just like somebody who needs to get their shit together, because that's what I was feeling. I was like, Paula, just like pick somewhere and stay there. And like, you got to do what everybody else is doing, but it's never felt right for me. And just, you've shared that with me and said, like, this is a part of, who you are and what your soul's wanting. Yeah, it's my blueprint. And then I've heard that in other readings from other angles as well, is that I'm somebody who is an energy that needs to keep moving, that doesn't like to be still. Yeah. And it's so interesting that when you hear that, and that's why I believe in like the work that you do so much, and why it had such an impact on me is because when you say it to me, even though you're saying things that I've never heard before, it feels like a knowing, like I'm like, yes. And it just makes my whole like soul and my nervous system just relax, because I'm like, that's it. It's so like, you see me.
Yes. I have a question for you, Kasia. Do you? I'm just picturing Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost right now, like when you do a reading.
I pictured a ghost.
When you do a reading, do you go, can't talk to anyone now? No, my energy's gone. See how it goes. Walk out of the room. Does that happen? Feel this energy, or does it fuel you?
No, I've mastered how to allow it to not drain me. I think
cool.
See, I think because I really desperately wanted to see the ghost, like Patrick Swayze in Ghost, and I wanted him to stand, and I wanted
Where's
him to
Patrick?
I know, full sentences. Don't give me riddles that I have to then be like, do I say this? Does a red brush means something to you? Oh yeah, that was my grandmother's, and I still have it, and yes, that does make sense, right? But to me, I'm like, oh, it's a red brush. So I wanted a Patrick Swayze ghost to appear, and I was working so hard, and then I think it was it was probably several of my spiritual mentors, but like the shaman that I worked with, he goes like, but you have to stop, because the more you're forcing it, the more you're putting up this resistance, and you're not focusing on actually the messages that you are receiving, right? And the thing is, again, around that's actually healing, because I was always scared of the dark. And he said the reason you were scared of the dark was because you saw them when you were younger, and it scared you, so you shut it down, because they don't come when you're scared.
Oh.
So
Wow.
for me, that was like, oh, now I understand why I was scared. I was scared not just as a child. I was a grown woman. I have a neighbor next door, and if I left her house and it was dark, she had to walk me to the street and watch me go up on my veranda into the house because I was too scared. But when he said that, it's like I had this release, and I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden I'm not scared. And the moment I decided and I stopped being scared, all of a sudden I've got spirits waking me up at night. So it's like this chain reaction. It's like more and more, right? But protection is what I've learned from Miss Tracy Lee, because modern day mystics are all about like, no, don't worry about protection. You're fine because you're a light worker. Thing is, energies can drain you, even from people. Energies can drain you, because all of a sudden you become this beacon of light, and they don't do it intentionally. It's just they're having a bad day. That energy kind of, it's like a magnet drawn to you, and if you don't know how to cleanse it, how to protect yourself, you'll end up feeling, depressed, sad, no energy, lethargic. And it happened to me twice and scared the crap out of me. So now I use protection.
Cool.
What's one of your favorite forms of protection? What are one of the
Well,
things you like to do?
just here around the space, I've got crystals, tourmaline, and I'm not an expert in crystals, but I know tourmaline is good. I've got, mostly it's really just setting the intention and asking your gatekeeper to come in and put in a protective barrier around you.
Yeah.
So especially when I do group sessions, right? Like before we started this podcast, I grounded the podcast, right? So I grounded us, which means that you don't take on my energy. So I don't want you to walk away and feeling anything that maybe has come through from a session from a client and I didn't process it, and then jumps on you, and all of a sudden you're having a really crappy day. So I grounded us, I put protection, and it's literally setting the intention. And I was the kind of person, I was like, yeah, I don't really know if I believe in this. But when I did a couple of sessions, group sessions, where I didn't do it, I felt like for the next few days, I was like, what is happening? I feel like so low vibe and like really just this yucky feeling. And I'm like, where's it coming from? Because I'm like, nothing happened, nothing bad happened, but I just had this feeling. So now I just do it. I just set intention. I put a protective, I get the gatekeeper to come and put protective lights around it. That's probably it. It's setting the intention. Just, I'm only available for spirits of light and love and higher vibrational spirits, not the lower ones. And, you have to think that when you work with energies, whether it's, channeling specifically, whether you're using your intuition and sort of receiving messages, whether you're a healer, that space, that channel is VIP only. It's not a karaoke open mic available for everyone, whoever wants to come and talk to me, because that's how you attract negative entities into that space. So it's always VIP, invited people only.
I love that.
You get your guides, you might want to channel some goddesses, but you don't want to keep it open for everyone, because and the thing is, admittedly, I don't understand, because I haven't taken the time to really immerse myself in cosmic wars and what is happening with reptilians and all that stuff. I have friends who channel that and they know, and it's like a whole nother thing, but that's how you get the cosmic negative energies, and then also negative energies from people.
Yeah, because I know working with people, like I'm very much conscious about my energy, because I see, my energy and my vibe as, my atmosphere. This is what I'm giving out into that, like our collective atmosphere out here. And this is actually what is drawing people to want to work with me, and what they're attuning to when they're in my presence as well. So I actually, over the past few years of doing this work, I've noticed, for the first couple of years, I was kind of like, I would get into these funks, like what you said. And I'm like, I don't even know where this came from. Like what? And I'd be so confused, and it would put me in a spin. And it was actually that because I'm so open with my energy, that I was welcoming in energy as well as giving it out. And that sometimes I was taking on the energy of clients and customers and things that they were sharing with me. And I was, you know, energetically going, oh, okay, give that to me so you don't have to have that anymore, or give that to me so I can help you through this, because I'm here to help you. So if I take this on, I'd be able to help you on a deeper level, sort of thing. So that is so interesting, because I definitely, you know, you're working with, you know, different planes and different worlds and a lot of different spirits and energies coming through you. So when things happen, it's not even our own energy that we are processing. And sometimes
but we're so used to feeling this that we think that's a natural state. And I see it, especially in my one-on-one clients, because I guess we work for a longer period, but I'm like, once I start clearing it for them, they start feeling different. It's like, I've never felt so energized or so good, or, you know, like, okay, so Paula, so I'm sure you get this a lot. Actually, Shauna, you probably as well, actually, because we have mutual people. So I know what they're telling me, but you probably hear this a lot, that your energy is amazing. Like, people love your energy, and it's just and it's not just because you two are so good at like sharing the love and really, like, you two are like the essence of what sisterhood is, right? Like supporting each other and uplifting. But even just you appear, and I know a few people that have done workshops, right? And with both of you, and they always say, oh my God, their energy is so amazing. And oh my God, she's exactly the same in person as she is on camera, you know, or they love watching you on camera. So this is the thing, you bring this energy, but if you are this beacon of light and you're this beautiful open energy, this loving energy, and especially if you're an empath, but you have to protect it, because, you know, you'll get energy vampires here in life, but also cosmic ones coming, because you're shining light, and it's like you're the gateway to here. So even just setting the intention and just visualizing this white light coming down, protecting you just before you go live or go into a session or work with clients, and just kind of visualizing that, okay, this session, everyone's grounded, everyone's happy, and you're shining this light, right? And then going to a session is enough. Like, you don't have to carry crystals, you don't have to use any incense if you don't want to at all. I mean, that's like next level. But even just visualizing this, and I know that when I started doing that, I was getting that energy thing, but also people, like my sessions, my lives were like, oh yes, that was a good one. That went like really good, right? Because I grounded everyone, I put a protective barrier, we were focused, we were present, and I walked away and I just disconnect, and that's it.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it with live streams before.
That is interesting.
Because
energy travels, right?
Yeah, because sometimes I'll do a live stream and it will fully energize me, and other times I feel like as I'm going, I'm like, oh, it's draining energy from me. Like, what's going on?
Well, that's the thing, because people's energy, so if let's say someone's watching who's going through a difficult time, their energy stays, right, in that field. So I always set an intention in all my workshops that this space is protected, not just for the people who are watching live, but whoever decides to watch this in the future. And this is like a 2-second thing that I do. But even if you set the intention, you go like, okay, I'm just going to prep myself, visualize this beautiful white light, setting the intention, I'm coming with love. You will see that your clients even will be like next level. Because if you can already do this, not intentionally setting your energy, right? And you already bring these crowds and people are loving you and your energy. But imagine if you actually set the intention, okay, I'm going to shine this light, right? I'm going to be coming with love. And then you go into your session, whether it's in person, whether it's via video, and you will see that people will respond differently. It's like, can't get enough of this beautiful light. It's healing.
I'm excited by this.
Yeah, this is very cool.
I love that.
Is there a post, something that you can do if there's a little bit of an energy leak, that you might finish it off and you know, there's a tiny bit that's lurking, it might, you know, develop more into a funk if you don't release it? Is there anything that you can do straight after?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Okay, with energy, there's not, you have to use crystals or you have to use sage, or you have to, right? It's more about what you feel is aligned for you. So yes, you can use crystals and like kind of cut dissolve the cords around you. You can use sage and sage it, but you can also just visualize yourself disconnecting. So like visualize these cords disconnecting you from whatever, like if it's this video session, you might want to visualize a bubble and then visualize yourself disconnecting, wrapping them up in love. So this means that any stale or negative energy that was there, that like Paula said, she wanted to take on, to release them from it, she doesn't take on, but she doesn't send back the negative. She cleanses it. So I usually just visualize this bubble, beautiful light. You can also have Epsom salt baths, which is aura cleaning. And that's mostly, I really recommend this to my clients who have a lot of that negative energy and they just want to wipe it clean. You will step out and you will feel lighter. So especially if you've never done it, Epsom salt, oils, nice warm bath, visualizing white light, or even in a shower, visualize the white light coming down, and that cleanses it. Because the thing is, when you visualize it, and you feel, the more you do it, you'll probably feel this energy coming through your body. It can feel like tingles. It can feel like all of a sudden you're getting warm, or it can feel like someone is pouring this nice warm water and it tinkles down your back, down your shoulders, right? And you visualize that white light and then you're cleansed.
Beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
Wow, this has been so amazing. So amazing. Kasia. This has been, I feel totally like 5 kilos being lifted off me. Like I feel lightness and I want to go and have a bath now. Like just really, I just feel like really nurturing yourself, and I think that's another thing that is beautiful with your work as well, is just really nurturing our own selves to be our higher beings. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was such a delight. I can't believe an hour has gone by so quickly.
I know.
So what's next for Kasia? What's your big dream? What do you feel? Let us know about a different side of Kasia.
I still want to travel around Australia. I want what Paula had.
Yeah,
that is my dream. So in a caravan. And I think I just want to do what I do. And I don't know, I know that sometimes we have measures of success that are like, having something or making that money. But for me, it really is sort of like when someone messages me and says, like, even like you, Shauna and Paula, that this reading meant something to you, it has done something, or it has changed or shifted you. That means actually so much to me. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's so much. So, because I get so much healing through this, which is so weird, but I get so much healing through just knowing that someone has now that little bit of light, and they can, that ripple effect will sort of go out into the world. So I really love that. And I just want to do what I do forever. It's just so good.
It's so good. So beautiful.
Love it. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Kasia, for doing your work in the world. Thank you for choosing the wild road and doing the work that you do, because it was very brave of you to go after this and like go down the road less taken. But we've absolutely loved having you on the podcast, and we highly, highly, highly recommend having a session with Kasia, because it was life-changing for both of us. It was just so amazing to hear you reflect back to us who we are at our like being. It was so interesting and just so confirming. So how can people find you on the internet? So let us know where you hang out.
So I am Kasia Burke everywhere. Not everywhere, but Facebook and Instagram. And Kasia Burke is my website. If you type in Kasia Burke, you'll find me somewhere. Yeah. Thank you so much. Can I just say how much I love this experience with you two and your beautiful energies, but thank you so much for even just having me on. Because your podcast is pretty special and I love it. I was telling someone, I'm like, I feel like, it'll be really funny for me because I've listened to their podcast and it feels kind of like, when you're catching up with two friends and they're already there and you're running late, they're having this conversation, they're laughing and you're like kind of coming in, you don't know what's happening, but it's just so beautiful. Like the conversations that you have, it feels like I'm a fly on a wall listening to the two of you, like having this beautiful, deep conversations.
I love that, because
That was-
that's kind of like the vibe that we wanted. It was
That's our
like we want it to be like you're witnessing a conversation that Shona and I would have, like
Yeah.
a private conversation.
Yeah.
That like these are the
Right.
things that we talk about. Like we don't BS each other. So
Yeah.
it's so
what you
beautiful that
see-
you reflected that.
Thank you. We absolutely adore you, Kasia.
Oh,
Absolutely.
and the feeling is very mutual. Although I wish I could be as active with the love giving as you guys are. You guys are amazing. I sometimes think, do you have like 10 assistants who are like going everywhere and giving love? And so many times, like I just go, wow, you're straight onto it. I love that so much, because that is really important, right? Like showing someone that, you know, disposed meant something, that you've seen it, you witnessed their journey. And I feel like
Yeah.
there must be like 10 Shaunas and 10 Paula Ivies like going and spreading this love around, because it's just mind-blowing to me how you managed to do that.
Oh,
Being
Aw,
so
thank
busy and so
you.
amazing.
thank you. Yeah, it's the change we want to see in the world. Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you all on the next episode. We might get Kasia to sing the Wild Roads or not. The end of our podcast, we're singing the Wild Roads in a really professional fashion. Go for it, Paula.
Wild roads. There you go.
I love
There she
that.
goes.
That's the whole lyrics.
That is the whole lyrics.
Wild Rose.
Wow.